Guess what? We are live. Coming to you a little early. 15 minutes early, no less. See who else comes early. Someone, I just read a comment from someone on one of the videos, and I love this. This type of content because it's easy to clarify one point, and that is this person who commented said there's never one thought. There's always, streams of thoughts and interrelated thoughts and thoughts talking to other thoughts and all that. And what I want to point to in the way I'm pointing, because this pointing is always about right now, what I want to point to is that the belief that there are a whole bunch of thoughts and they're interrelated and they're interwoven and they're coming in on top of one another and they're coming in a string, that itself is the thought. That's the thought you're having at the moment. Meta thought, right? But if you really look and pay attention, you really only kind of have one concept appearing as thought at a time. It's just that the nature of thought is such that it can claim a lot more territory than it inhabits. So anyway, just thought I would answer that because I thought it was a pretty cool comment and a common sort of misconception. So right on. Who do we have here? We got Imfadi from Vancouver. Hello. Hi, Ashley. Good to see you. Christian from the Netherlands. Good to see you. Hey, Andy from Ireland. Awesome. All over the place, representing the world map. Kate. Hey, Kate. Hey, Jennifer. We'll see you in a few weeks, I guess. Vern. Early. There's no time. Of course. Hi from the UK. Yeah, it is true. Look around. Look into your experience. Where do you see time? Where do you see time flowing? Where do you see beginnings and endings? You have to reflect in thought for any of those to apparently exist. So this is a live. I do these lives monthly for members who are at the sustaining member level and above on my channel. If you do subscribe at the sustaining member level or above, you will have at least one live like this where I just answer questions that people message into me on chat. And you'll also receive one double barrel non-duality, which I do over Zoom. And every month I have a different co-host. So we take turns answering people's questions. This is just when this recording is live to the public, so people actually know. Okay, this is from Christian. I noticed that when my mother-in-law is here, ... Oh, I see. Okay, I thought that was part of a question. You're responding to what I said about the thoughts. Gotcha. Hi from Germany. Hey, Jay. Vladimir. Hey, from South California. Are you in Los Angeles? Are you in San Diego? Yeah, I'm excited to see you too, Jennifer. Ashley says time is so weird for me now. My tests are timed, and most times I forget about the timer there. Right. Yeah. Yeah, it is very strange. Lorraine from Florida. Hello. Zen Ghost. I love that name. Username. From Ohio. Looking forward to the Art of Living. Oh, cool. See you there. When you're at the Art of Living, make sure you tell me your username on YouTube, because I know so many usernames by username, but I have no idea who they are because they use, monikers or whatever, like Zen Ghost. But it's kind of nice to make the connection sometimes. Catalin from Romania. Very cool. Hello. Dimitri from New Jersey. Brando. Hey, girl. I think you're talking to Ashley. I'm not sure. This is from Ashley. I hope you all have an amazing time at the retreat. Going to miss not being there this year, but I'm exactly where I am meant to be. Know me. This awakened consciousness is open space for me. Big sky. Yes, that's right. Big sky. But when I do inquiry, it has no place. It's everywhere. No borders, no color. And I am seeing it, but can't find an eye. And everything is. Awesome. Beautiful. There may be more to that last sentence, but if not, that's a pretty complete observation. Orange County, Irvine. Cool. Thanks, Vlad. Hey, Brad. What's up? Yeah, good to see you all. We still haven't even hit the starting time. We'll probably get a ton more people pop on here. Z from Missouri. Zerkton from Wasabi. Y'all. Janelle, hello. I don't think I've had any questions yet. Let me scroll up and see if I missed anything. Not really. Yep. Art of Living. Oh, so the retreat's coming up. Art of Living in December. And there's still spots if anyone wants to go. You may have to stay in town. They may not have rooms available, but it's close. And you'll be staying in Boone, which is about 15-minute drive, I believe. There's retreats. There's definitely retreat spots left for the spring multimodality retreat, both with and without breakout rooms with Inside Circle. Even if you have that retreat without breakout rooms, which is cheaper, you'll still have everyday guided meditation by me, talks by me, Q&A by me, and then every single day there's a large group exercise that the whole group will do, or the whole group who's not with Inside Circle that day. So it'll be like 100 people doing that exercise, essentially, or workshop. And so they're different every day. There can be 5 different ones. Okay, this is from Catalan. Angelo, could you talk about releasing subtle body tension in connection with the unbinding consciousness from thoughts? Yeah, I wouldn't mix those two as a practice necessarily. Resting with unbinding consciousness or resting in unbound consciousness, in that space, in that meditative practice that I describe, the way I describe it, I would not worry about subtle sensations. They come and they go. If they're there, fine. If they're not, fine. But notice that the noticing of them cognitively is itself a thought. That's the key. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to make it more complex. When you sit with it and the mind starts saying, oh, but I'm feeling a sensation in my legs. What should I do about it? That's the thought, right? That's catching you. So you just return to however it is you guide yourself back to that unbound consciousness right through that thought, right? That thought is consciousness. It is the whole of consciousness. Nothing has happened. Nothing has changed. And there's not even really a concern arising unless you don't recognize that thought as a thought and also as the entirety of consciousness. Nice. Good question. This is Ina or Ina from Poland. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong. I'll pronounce it both ways. I suspect it's Ina, but I'm not for sure. Kogan is also from Poland. He's a Zen monk and has been for many years. He's going to be in the second part of the documentary, which we're still editing. I think we're getting closer, hopefully in the next little bit. I don't want to put an end date on it, but hopefully we get it out in the month. Maybe before Art of Living. That would be cool. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do that. Nomi. Hello from Antwerp, Belgium. Love it. So cool. A lot of people from Europe. Jennifer says, my family is the typical Bible Belt conservative family. Hidden who I am since I was 14 to avoid their shunning. I've been able to keep the peace and ignore their behavior. That has become, going back down here, impossible. The childhood trauma I'd ignored from my mother's mental illness has surfaced. I've never felt so alienated from them while also feeling repulsion toward their racist behavior. Still fear their abandonment. Yeah, it's heavy, right? When we come from a family that is dogmatic, judgmental. I'll make this judgment based on what you said, but you didn't exactly say it. But there's often a strong sense of, what's the word? Inauthenticity around people like this, right? Like the holier than thou types tend to have a pretty divided emotion body, I find. It could just be a lot of repressed emotion. Could even be abuse cycles that are occurring that they tend to hide or go into complicity with. They're abused somehow and hide it, in a relationship or something. It can be hard people to be around. Now, when you grow up around them and they're your family and maybe your lifeline in some way, it's much more challenging, right? Very challenging. I don't really have an answer for you, Jennifer, as far as like what to do, but I do know talking about it can be helpful, of course. One thing I will say is there's a bit of a challenge with this as you wake up, and that is, I'll try to summarize this simply just based on my own experience, but there's this thing that happens the more you wake up. The awakeness actually becomes a bit of a threat to people who are inauthentic, right? Especially if you're close to them. If you're not close to them, it doesn't matter, but if you have to spend time around people, their inauthenticity will start to feel, I think it's almost like it starts to be noticed by them in some way. It causes like a cognitive dissonance, and to avoid having to recognize that that's what's going on in them, they'll project it onto you. This is common. So it's challenging. Continue waking up, continue really looking at your boundaries, questioning yourself, what are my boundaries and why? And how can I be more clear about them? How can I communicate them to whatever person I'm thinking about in the moment? All of that's really helpful. What I find though is there's an in-between phase where you've woken up a good amount, but the family dynamics are still strong and still maybe directed at you even. And that's kind of hard. Like sometimes you have to tough that out, I guess, or make as much distance as you need to just maintain your own mental and emotional health. And then what I find is over time, but it can take a long time, your own clarity has a different kind of effect on people, I think. It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to make a completely, emotionally divided human being suddenly see the light or something. It's not really like that, but it does influence relationships around you, and you'll notice boundary setting gets more natural. People tend not to direct their drama at you so much because you don't go into complicity with it anymore. So they get kind of bored with it and maybe look for somebody else, right? So it will change over time, as in my experience, but it can take quite a while. And all you're really called to do is continue to wake up yourself. It's all you can really do, Yeah, tricky. This is tricky. This is a tricky space for sure. Okay, great question. All right. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. From Flashed. Hello, hello. Infati is here. Retracted the message. That's okay. Maybe we'll get another one later. From Cadlin. I don't think I heard about the physical side of it in your talks. For me, it feels very connected, body tension, thought identification. The first part of this process, the initial approach to awakening through essentially the recognition of the nature of consciousness itself, there can be very physical effects to that, very physical side effects. Some people have very strong energetics, which can be called kundalini. The people who have very strong kundalini, I think, are definitely more on the rare side. They're out there for sure, but most of us will have some form of kundalini somewhere along the line, and we may not recognize what it is. Energetics, like tensions, headaches, feeling energetic restlessness that comes out physically, maybe. So it definitely happens. What I will say is, if you're sitting and you're doing kind of the sort of one-pointed thing, you're doing a one-pointed inquiry or approach, and or resting in consciousness as a practice, noticing body tensions is going to happen. And as I mentioned a little earlier, the noticing of that is itself a thought, and that's fine. But what you can sometimes do is, if you really notice the body tensing up, because sometimes before awakening, we have so much will and effort tied into thought, and that's not something that's obvious, but it is, that the body will respond strongly to us disidentifying from thoughts. And you might feel it like contorting, or like feel tension building in your face or your head or your body. So what I tell people is, if they're kind of working toward that awakening, or just sitting in unbound consciousness and noticing the body kind of responding to the intention to not become thought identified, just stop for a moment and just notice your body. Notice the whole body, head to toe, and look at where any tension points are, and see if you can just relax them. Because some of them you can. Some of them you can just like, oh, I was holding my shoulders like really tight, straining against thoughts or something. Just relax it, to the best you can. There may be tensions and sensations you can't actually relax directly like that, and that's okay. But it can be helpful to just remind yourself, okay, I don't need to physically strain to wake up. I don't need to physically strain to push thoughts away or hold this space of thoughtlessness or something like that. That's again, another interpretation of mind. But relaxing the body can help move you through that. And you can actually approach, even one-pointed approach, through a kind of absorption and curiosity rather than tension and pushing and pulling and strain. Yeah, good question. Or comment. The last part of what Jennifer said was, I still fear their abandonment, the abandonment of the family, right? Fear of abandonment, it goes deep, and it's going to be related to certain things that occur in your life, right? Changes in relationship status, changes in family dynamics, being reminded of, the family dynamics by being around them. All these things are going to sort of stir that pot a bit, right? And lead us, if we look closely, to this fear of abandonment in many of these settings. So the fear of abandonment, what I want to say about it, though, is it's actually not as personal as it seems. It's a survival instinct, right? It comes from a very, very young age, and a setting up of identity at a young age, and some of those fears get tied into it at those stages of life. They get tied into identity, and the nature of identity is it has a shadow to it, right? So when we really start deconstructing identity and or investigating shadow, we're going to find these very old and very fundamental to our emotional development fears, and fear of abandonment's a big one. But if you regard it as it is, as just an experience, and not necessarily about what you think it's about mom or dad or this or that, just really regard it as a natural phenomenon that's occurring right now, and it's for you to experience. That's it. You don't really need a story with it. You can feel right into it. It may get very scary if you really orient toward it and just move straight into it. It may get like, the fear may be like, whoa, this is big fear. This is big fear. And that's okay. It's a physical experience. But be willing to keep going back to it when it shows up. Be willing to turn toward it when it's there. You do that enough times and it will fundamentally change. In regards to what it seems like it's about, and the reaction to the family and all of it. And yeah, that's all I'll say for the moment. Ulala says, doesn't the Art of Living Space retreat center have space for 1,000 people to stay overnight? I don't know. I don't think it's 1,000, but maybe. They have a lot of different ways they can structure their retreat rooms. I think they can even have quad retreat rooms. Maybe they can put 3 people, 4 people, 2 people. But as you would imagine, in a space like that, they restructure it and redistribute it based on who's got the room blocks and who's renting and who's there and all of it. I think we're the only big group on campus. There's a couple very small retreats that they do with kind of their own people who come and do a 3-day meditation or 4-day meditation retreat or a program, but it's a very small number. So we're the only big group there. But what often happens is the rooms people want fill up. So single occupancy hotel, single occupancy retreat, and maybe even double occupancy retreat. Once those start getting full and you're like, I don't want to stay in a room with 3 people. I'd rather stay in a hotel in Boone. They'll accommodate that. You can just call them and ask. So just FYI. Okay, this is from Vern. Hey, Vern. My wife and I intended to join the UK retreat plus the USA August retreat next summer. I don't know what the USA August retreat is next summer. The UK retreat is next August, but I don't have another retreat next summer that I know of. It's not ringing a bell. The question is that a good idea, i.e., is there much overlap? Thank you. Well, I don't want to sound like I'm just selling retreats to you, but I find retreats are very powerful. The ones that I've hosted have been very powerful, and people who have gone have endlessly told me that. Every retreat is definitely different. I could get up and have the same subjects for my talks for a whole week and then do it again the next week, and I could use the same subjects, even the same quote unquote curriculum. It would be very different because the people are different, the energetics are different, what I'm saying is different. I don't plan what I'm talking about, and I certainly don't write it down and read it or something like that. I speak just from the moment, and that speaking from the moment has a sort of timing and synergistic nature to it, and it has to do with what's happening at the retreat, how people are doing, the energetics of it. So it's always different. So going to more than one retreat in a short time, whether it's mine and someone else's or 2 Zen retreats or something, it's still valuable to me, in my opinion. Yeah. But I said, let's see, the USA August retreat next summer, I think, I'm wondering if you're talking about the online retreat? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm missing something there. Lorraine, is it possible that this, which just is not hidden, not known, not mysterious, but is in plain sight? Oh, it's not just possible, it's definitely the case. But the real question is, what is plain sight? And then the last part is, only filters would make believe it is unknown, mysterious, this. Yes. Yeah. I just caution people to be careful with this. I'm going to call it a conclusion, right? You sound like you have significant insight, and that's great. But I will call it a conclusion that gets stated like this, a little bit like what you're saying, but not quite. It's a little more direct and stereotyped almost. I get this comment in my videos, and it's like, yeah, there's no need for practice. There's there's nothing to do. Everything's just this. And, it's kind of like that, right? Some version of that. The problem with that is it could, yes, you Buddha nature pervades everything. You are nothing but Buddha nature. Sure. Awake nature. Yeah. Are you still suffering though? Are you still living identified with thoughts? Are you still struggling against yourself? And are you struggling in relationships? Are you struggling in life? Do you have addictions? Like there are a lot of litmus tests you can check in with yourself to see if you really think this is done and there's nothing to do. Usually that's a misinterpretation. I would never suggest you're going to come to a place where you're like, oh, I'm done. This is done. It doesn't really work that way. The one who can be done and not be done, and the one who wants to be done, the one who wants to know where the starting line and finish line is, the one that wants to know the paradigms, that wants to know the maps for spirituality, that one is as illusory as its own birth and death. It's as illusory as being done. So when that is gone, who's there to talk about being done? It doesn't make sense anymore, right? I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but it's based on this question. It's like there is always deepening in one sense or another that is available in my experience. And everyone I know that's realized, that's deeply, including no self-realization. There's always clarity, clarification. A lot of it is in the relative spectrum, actually. In the emotion spectrum, looking into your behaviors, beliefs, patterns, etc. It becomes a lot easier because it's all completely uncovered, but it's also higher stakes to stay unconscious to it, which is very difficult. What really happens is it comes into consciousness in a way you're maybe not prepared for. That definitely can happen. So just be aware of that. So yeah, I never want to point people to an idea or belief or conclusion that, oh, you're done. That's a mistake usually. Cool. Again, we're talking about subtle things here, so deep realization. So if that lands, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. Okay, this is Ashley. She says to Vern, no two retreats are the same. I have done 2 with Angelo, and each one is their own living being, if that makes sense. I totally agree. Also, what my Zen teacher used to say frequently, and other Zen teachers probably say this, is like, Adyashanti says it. I've heard Adyashanti say something like this. You can go to one retreat and think you know what retreat's about, and maybe the first retreat you go to is like really blissful, peaceful, or maybe it's not. It could be quite the opposite. It could be very challenging physically and emotionally. So you think, oh, that's what retreat's like. And then you go to the next one and it's nothing like that. A lot of it is the conditions you're bringing into retreat. You may have a shift, and that shift may allow you to bring more shadow material up into consciousness, and you'll work through that, right? But it's unpredictable when and how that happens. So I think Ashley's right on the money there. David and Elaine, hey. Let me scroll back up here. I try to prevent it, but there's a thing with YouTube where the comments will scroll way up really fast suddenly. Someone taught me to click on the comments and click next to them and so forth to prevent it. And it seems to work for the most part, but sometimes it doesn't at all. And it just shot up the screen like a lot. So I'm scrolling up to find where we're at. Okay, David and Elaine. Hi, Angelo and everyone. Love and greetings from both of us from the UK. Thank you. Good to see you. Ina. Oh, good. Okay, Ina. Yeah, she's telling me how to pronounce the name. Vern saying thank you to Ashley. Hey, Joe. Good morning. Infati, here's the question. Any guidance on dealing with noticing that people being within your field feel at ease or safe? With dealing with noticing that people within your field feel at ease or safe, how do I ensure integrity in my connection after seeing this pattern over and over? So the question is, any guidance on dealing with noticing that people being within your field feel safe or ease? Do you mean being concerned with it, like being preoccupied with whether they feel safe and at ease and that you want to comfort them? I'm assuming that's what you mean. Let me read the rest of your question here. Particularly shifting things toward romantic direction and ensuring consent in all levels rather than energetic intoxication. Yeah, it's a little hard for me to unpack what you're actually asking there, but there's a nurturing quality that we have as humans, right? Where you want people to feel safe and loved and around you. And that's awesome, right? If you're really preoccupied with it and it turns into people pleasing, that can be problematic, of course, because people pleasing can be very inauthentic, right? Are you doing something to manipulate the person? And you can even be kind to manipulate somebody, right? Only you know that. And it could be a mixed agenda as well. You may genuinely like when people are comfortable because you care about them. And at the same time, part of it is you're doing it as a coping mechanism so that they don't direct any uncomfortable emotion toward you, right? But only you know that. You have to really look into your own behaviors and motivations and ask yourself, maybe repeatedly, like, am I trying to get something out of this? Like, why am I treating this person so kindly? Maybe if it's different than the way I'm treating this person, is there something there? What's that about, right? What are my expectations? And so you mentioned romance and so forth. In emotionally connected situations, whether it's romantic or family, etc., or close friends, whatever, that's very fertile ground to investigate into whether we have ulterior motives. And literally just asking the question, I think, is helpful. Do I have any ulterior motives? Is there something I want from this person? Yeah. And there probably is, right? And that's okay, but really be honest with yourself about that. And looking closely at anything, I think, really helps. Anything. But asking yourself, what are my motivations? What are my beliefs about them? What are my beliefs about me? Do I have a belief that I need to present myself a certain way to them? This can become pathological, right? It's not like a personality disorder where the person is not authentic at all. What they're doing is projecting constantly, or constructing a persona, for instance. Like if that seems like that's happening in the extreme, or even in a more subtle pattern, it's very, very fertile ground to look into it. Like, why am I projecting myself toward people? Why am I trying to show someone I am this way or I am that way? Am I trying to get something out of it, right? Or am I just, no, I just really like to make sure people are comfortable and happy around me, that are in my vicinity because I care and love about them. So I would kind of look at it that way and just see if there's some mixed agendas there. Gareth, good day from Australia. Good to see you. Early in the morning for you, yeah. Thanks for getting up early. It's from Kate. Hey, Angelo, don't know if there's an answer to this, but it's a big feeling of shame at not having woken up yet. Life has changed beyond recognition. Much work being done on shadow, and lots of inquiry. That's awesome. It's possible you did have an awakening. Usually you don't overlook it when it's happening, but strangely later on, sometimes looking back, it's like, no, something happened there, but I don't know what it was. I've encountered people like that who had an awakening like a handful of years ago, and they're not sure if they have, and so forth. So that's always a possibility. I don't know your situation, but if you see what I'm really pointing to, that what I'm pointing to is already here. Awakeness is already here. if you see that and you just let that settle into you, that awake nature is here. It's already the case, for sure. Then you can see like, well, what is that shame actually about? Is it about what my mind's telling me it's about? That I haven't gotten something in the way the mind thinks I'm going to get it? Because if it's based on that, then that's, and to me, that's a bit of a misinterpretation of the emotion, because you're not going to get something outside of this. It's already here. So then it's like, okay, well, maybe I can just experience the shame as just a raw experience, as a simple experience, without putting any story on it. Yeah. And or maybe it even triggers a memory of something where shame developed in you at a younger age or something. What I'm essentially saying is unhooking the shame from the interpretation that it's about awakening, because it really probably isn't. It may be about a pattern that's being applied to what the mind thinks awakening is. That's an old pattern. Yeah. And at the same time, there's nothing wrong with shame being here. It's awesome. If shame has shown itself, you have been doing work. You have been doing shadow work, and that's awesome, right? And if things have changed beyond recognition, that's great. Lots of inquiry. I think you're doing awesome. I don't have a. This is one of the ones that's like a little hard to say, but I don't have a way. I don't have a way of perceiving directly, like say I'm interacting with somebody, that says this person's awake or not. Like I don't categorize people that way. It doesn't really come into my consciousness unless, and this is important, unless I'm in this kind of setting where it can come into consciousness because that person is shifting or they're moving toward awakening in a very rapid way. And again, toward is just a word. They're going deep now. They're letting go of identity. The identity is letting go of itself. Like if all that's happening, then I can talk in terms of awakening as a sort of event. But even then, I'm careful how I talk about it. So the point I'm making is when I read everything you're doing here, I think that's awesome. It's some very, very important work. And some people have awakenings and don't do that work until they're really forced to. You're better off than that. That's really good. So yeah, from my perspective, it's not a concern at all that the mind is saying I haven't had an awakening yet. Again, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but maybe, and not just maybe, for sure, what the mind thinks awakening is isn't what it is. That's it. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate your honesty there. Okay, Gareth, any thoughts on the spring retreat? The spring retreat is May. It's on my website. It's at Art of Living, and it's a multimodality retreat. I guess is that what you're asking? Nicole. Hi. Good to see you. Eric. Hello from Seattle. Good to see you. Robin. Hello. Welcome. Cherie Miller from Medford, Oregon. Hello. Soph from New York City. Hello. Bay Tropolis. Hey, Angelo, when you talk about non-dual, are you generally referring to what other traditions call unity consciousness? Nope. Not unity consciousness. Or possibly Brahman. I'm thinking it's more Brahman, but it really depends on what you mean by Brahman. Yeah. But it's not unity consciousness. Unity consciousness comes before. But it's not something you should abandon either. Unity consciousness, or what I'll call unbound consciousness, is usually the term I use for a specific reason. That still can be practiced and should be practiced ongoing, in my opinion, because it's awesome to do it. And it's wonderful. It really calms everything down, and it recenters. Center is not a good word, but it sort of reminds you of the nature of consciousness itself, that it is a faculty, but it's also like a sense gate. Yeah. So it can be a practice, but that's not the same as non-dual realization. Non-dual realization is rather specific in what actually shifts, what drops away. Soph, can you please do an interview with David Schwartz from the Internal Family Systems? I've thought of this, yeah. It has crossed my mind. It's been helping with shadow work. Awesome. Teresa. Hello from Chicago. Chi-town. Aaron from New Jersey. Hello. Schneebs. Hey, Angelo. I wanted to know if it's a waste of time attempting to improve the character before awakening, like treating a symptom instead of the disease type situation. Yeah, it can be, I think. It's not, nothing's really a waste of time, I guess, but it's like, I'll say it this way. It's much, much harder before awakening. It's much harder when the identity structure is solid, because what happens often is you improve one part of the character and then another part, looks different, right? Another part rears its ugly head. Another, like you get rid of one bad habit, another bad habit pops up, and you may feel like you have a handle on the emotional state around a certain situation, and then in another situation it just falls apart, right? But this is the nature of identity. It has that divided feel to it. So if I were to recommend something to someone, it would be based on what we're talking about. It's this: if you are primed for awakening, like I think Adi Shanti once said, I had to be awakened yesterday. I had to be enlightened yesterday. Like he described how it was just such a prominent drive. That's how it was for me. And I didn't have that kind of thought about it. It's just, that's how it was. If it's very, very prominent in your experience and or already unfolding and or all you really want to do is go beyond yourself. Like if that's the number 1, 2, and 3 inclinations you have right now, then that's what I think you should do. Don't worry about the rest. Don't worry about shadow work for now. Don't worry about trying to improve your character. Short of that, maybe someone's just not interested in awakening at all. They're not interested in the topic we're talking about. Or you're like, yeah, I am interested in it, but I really feel compelled to do shadow work. I feel compelled to do emotion work and so forth. So if that's the case, if it's not like, I say strike while the iron's hot with awakening, but if the iron's not hot yet, do some shadow work. Shadow work. I don't know what improve the character means. It can mean so many things. Rather, I would just say do shadow work. Be vulnerable. Dig in. Find out what's there. Submit your ego to the process of shadow work, of inquiry, of maybe therapy or IFS, or even working with somebody who you think is really, really good with shadow work, and they're out there for sure. That would be the thing I would recommend to somebody as the number 2 recommendation if awakening isn't like, the highest priority for them at the moment. So the question then becomes, what's good shadow work, right? Because you can do, a lot of people may say they're doing work, but they may not be, right? Or they talk about it, or they intellectualize it, or it gets built into their personality. The one who does the work, the one who knows about all of the terminology and stuff. But if you're around them and you're like, I don't think that person's doing work, right? You've been around these people. So it's easy to fool yourself about it. But what is good work? Good work is vulnerable. It's got to be vulnerable. You have to find a way to unguard yourself. You have to be willing to take off the armor and find a way to do it. Right? Because if you do shadow work as the armor, it may not be counterproductive, but it may be really non-productive. So find a way to unarmor yourself. That's my take on it overall. I hope that's helpful. Federico, hi Angelo. In your book, you say if we acknowledge an emotion is never wrong and attune to that peace that creates this peace will deepen. But I feel attuning to that peace would be avoiding the emotion. So don't try to bypass the emotion to get peace. Is that clear? The emotion is the portal. It is the gateway. Don't try to move toward peace. Peace is already here. It's a natural state, just like awakeness is the natural state. So look at what's seemingly obscuring it. That's the emotion, right? So you acknowledge an emotion and you say to yourself, okay, it's never wrong to feel, if I feel shame, it's totally right now. That's what's here. That's what's here. That's what's happening. Now feel it. Go to it. Go toward it. Move toward it. Acknowledge it. Talk to it if you need to. Use an IFS approach if you need to. Invite it to inhabit the body with you when it's here. Shame, guilt, sadness, grief, anger, right? That's how we do this. And the more times you touch into it, the clearer it will get. But I will caution you that the more times you touch into it as you're waking up, the more full on it gets. You start to feel things so full on. And that might sound great ahead of time, but when you're doing that, when you're feeling fear more full on than you've ever felt it, it's very easy to get lost. Not lost. It's very easy to be enticed by the thoughts, right? Because the thoughts will say something like, "Oh God, I must be going backwards. I must be doing something wrong. Why is this getting worse?" Right? This is never going to end. It puts it in time. The mind will try to put your experience in time and just make it, 5 degrees more miserable. Rather, just feel. Allow the emotion to be what it is, exactly as it is. That will lead to peace with time and practice. But that wouldn't make peace your goal necessarily. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Jennifer, thank you for the advice. I'm seeing them less. I'm feeling the guilt over that. Perfect. And you do love them. Perfect. Of course you love them. And guilt is okay too. Same thing, right? Feel the guilt. See, it's kind of tied to like the way my mom talked to me about, ignoring her, or what my dad or my family or whatever it is. Like just see, okay, this is what it seems to be connected to. This is how I got set up with that feeling of guilt. And okay, so be it. Now let me just feel it. Let me feel the guilt and not assume it's about anything specific, because it's just about what it's about. It's just a sensation, right? Feel it. You're doing great. And love, yeah, of course. That's the hardest part about breakups and putting distance between people who are unhealthy and so forth, is you do love them. That's what's so hard. If you didn't care about them, it would be easy. So it's okay that you love them. And I can tell you at some point it's possible to unhook the afflictive emotions from the love. You can still feel the love even if you have to have distance and boundaries with somebody, and even if they don't love you back, or they don't acknowledge the challenges that have come up because of their behaviors or whatever it is, right? That's okay. You can still love them. Give yourself permission to love, and also recognize that your love for that person or people or family or whatever is not contingent upon there being emotions or not being emotions, and they don't necessarily come together. So what I'm saying is, as you work through the emotions that are associated with this, we talked about shame and now guilt, as you work through them, and through them means really just integrating them, as I mentioned on the previous comment, using them as a sort of portal into the pure experience of an emotion, they will calm down. But the love can still be there, and it's fine. So it's possible to experience love with loss, even if the other person, family, or party is upset about it, judging you, and you've worked through the emotions, and their judgment and so forth don't actually trigger those emotions anymore, and you still love them, and you still have to have boundaries. That's possible. That's health. That's emotional health, and you definitely have the capacity for that. And that's what you're working on right now. You're working toward that. It's beautiful. Okay, Eric. On rare occasion, when I'm graced with a unity experience, it comes with a sense of everything is made of pure love. I don't hear this mentioned as much. Is it common for others to experience? I can relate to that very much, but I can tell you, for me, the experiences get so immersive that there's no need to describe them anymore. So I don't need to label it love. Not that I don't need to, I just don't have the inclination to. I don't have the inclination to label it anything. It's just this. And it's very deeply intimate as a description. You could call that love for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ashley, the Kundalini stuff for me was actually surprising. I did not expect it, and it can still surprise me even now. Yeah. It can be very surprising. If you hear someone talking about Kundalini who've never had it, you might think they're just maybe imagining it or exaggerating a sensation or symptoms of something else or something. But when you actually experience it, it's like, oh, wow, damn. Yeah, that's not imagined. it's very surprising, right? It's intense. It can be intense, and it can be, involuntary muscle movements. It can be intense energies moving up and down the spine. It can like overload the visual sense, like brightness, like light. All kinds of things can happen. And it's not like, am I experiencing this or not? It's like taking over your experience. Yeah. Okay, Han, hi from here. Perfect. I'm here too. That's where I am as well. This is from Anne Lay. How to unbind the watcher's state, as it's seen here as a fixed position of a view for sounds, sensations, and images. Yeah, there are different ways. One would be find as precisely as you can. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple ways of doing this. One is, if you're sure it's there, which it sounds like you're sure it's there, right? Or it seems like it's there, a fixed position. Find the fixed position experientially, not by thinking about it, not by going, oh, it's in my head, or it's in my chest, or it's in my navel. That's not what I mean. I mean, find it. Just try to find it. And if that leads to a sense of struggle or tension, relax the tension, relax the struggle, and then go again. Look for it. Try to find it precisely. And that can just become a practice, right? That can become a practice that becomes maybe very enjoyable or intuitively meaningful to you. Then just keep doing it. At some point, you might be really surprised when not finding it turns into a deep and profound conviction that it's actually not there at all. And that can very much change your experience. That's one way. Another way is to, if you assume you know where it is, that you feel like you know where it is, and you feel like, oh, that's where I am or something, you can move your attention slowly from that point or space of the noticer. Try to move it slowly, your attention, right? Through whatever it has to move through to come into contact with the objects of experience, which you're calling sounds, sensations, and images. Follow the attention really precisely and closely as you move there to the sound until there's just the sound. Then try to move it back, move attention back through whatever that something must be, such that space can actually occur between where you feel like you're observing from and the sensory experience itself, right? Don't worry about what it is. It doesn't have to be called anything. Could call it awareness, could call it consciousness, could call it space. But don't call it anything. Just move your attention through it, because it seems like it's there, doesn't it? Back to that point or that sense of the you that's watching, wherever that is. Do that slowly and keep doing it as a practice. See if you can find a boundary of any kind anywhere. Yeah? So those are two things you can try. Let me know how that goes. This is called PW. Okay, PW. When I inquire where I am or where thought arises, I locate it in space inside my head. This space seems to have grown, but the experience is still located in my body. Any thoughts? It's a great question. This is very much related to the question I just answered. You can use either of those techniques I was just describing, right? But I would even encourage you just to read your own words, like read what you wrote here and really look at the assumptions that are made, right? So when I inquire, quote unquote, where am I, or where thought arises, I locate it in a space. Okay? What is that? Where is that space? When you say it's inside my head, like those are both concepts, and they're very different kinds of concepts. Do you think there's space inside your head? And if you're like, well, that's silly, there's not space in my head, there's a brain in my head or something, then ask yourself, well, then why do you believe why do you believe it? Why do you believe there's a head? Why do you believe there's space, and why do you believe there's a head, right? Or are those just thoughts? In this practice, is the head not just a thought? This is critical to see this. And then is space not just a thought, right? Look closely at what you're perceiving and what you're describing you're perceiving, and see if you're actually perceiving that. Are you imagining space as a thought in the same way you can imagine an elephant right now as a thought? Right? Good question. Okay. I like how they come in, like you guys have organized yourself into topics. Makes it so much easier. Okay, this is from Adi. Hi, Angelo. How can one make the leap from wanting to know into not knowing? Ooh, that's a good one. When it's clear everything is a story, a narrative, the mind still just continues to qualify the experience. How to stop? Okay. Great question. This is a common challenge for people who either have a tendency or have just done for a while to learn about topically, learn about awakening, learn about realization, learn about Buddhism. They know the doctrines and scriptures and tend to read, not scriptures so much, but doctrines and canon and all, and tend to read it and tend to analyze a lot. And it has a feeling of, I just want to know, though. It's so interesting. It's so interesting to know all this. And it is interesting. But I would say that interest, that kind of interest, the intellectual curiosity, is like the tip of the spear. No, I'll use a different analogy. It's the tip of the iceberg. There's a truth to it. Yeah, sure, you're intellectually curious. That's fine. But trust me, there's something much bigger going on below that. Much bigger. So part of it is, in a practical way or pragmatic way, setting aside your tendency to feed that hungry mental monster. Like some people just endlessly read doctrine or stuff, whatever. So if that's the case, just put it aside. Stop doing it and just sit there. See what happens. There's a very, very valuable practice at any stage of realization and before awakening that is this. Just stop. Just sit there and don't do anything. See what happens. See what comes. See what happens. See what happens to your mind. See what happens to your emotions. Do you start feeling impatient? What do the thoughts start saying? Well, you can't just do nothing. You got to be productive. You got to do some kind of practice or nothing's ever going to happen. You're not going to wake up. Is that what the thoughts are saying? Interesting, right? What if you just say, pat them on the head and say, thank you, thought. Just let it be there. Let it come and go. What's next? What else comes? Right? Feel into it. See what's actually happening. What I just said, the stopping, the sitting still and just stopping, without a practice even, as a practice, without a practice. Set your phone aside. Don't read anything. Don't try to force anything. Don't try to meditate. Just sit there and see what happens. That I just said is a cure for the addiction to knowledge about spirituality. If you actually do it. And if it's really hard to do, that's pointing you to something. If you really find it difficult to do that, that's pointing you to something. Why? What are you afraid to see? Because this will come down to fear. What's underlying the addiction to knowledge and inability to let go into the unknown, the barrier is fear. Fear comes in a lot of different forms, but it is fear. Every time. Ask yourself, what do I fear? Can I go right into my fear right now? Can I set my armor aside right now and go straight into the fear? Great question. Okay. It's from Sarah. Quote unquote shadow, parentheses, undeserving, entered through love so big and beautiful it overwhelms, parentheses, thought. I love it. The more sitting in awareness, the more love. When we overwhelm thought, laughter, and crying uncontrollably. I love reading this. I can sort of feel into what you're talking about, I think. But there's no question there, but I love it. Yeah. It gets big. I made a video once, and I've thought of making another one similar to this. It's like, I can't tell you how big this thing gets. Just as big is just a word. I just don't even know how else to talk about it. But how all-pervasive and every corner is looked in. Nothing is hidden. Everything is turned over in this process at some point. It's surprising what it leads to. And I made the video, I said it was like that. Like, I can't tell you how, there's no way I can tell you how big this actually gets. And it's very surprising. What I noticed is a few people put comments that were like, this video just makes me jealous. Like, I want that. And then I wanted to correct, I think I did write comments to correct that. It's like, I'm not saying you want it. It goes beyond your apparatus to want. It goes beyond your apparatus to want and not want. It's just bigger than that. So things like entering the unknown are very accurate, very apt descriptions. Cool. This is from Pam. Hey, Pam. Pamela. I don't know if you go by Pam or Pamela, so I'll just say Pamela. A huge amount of energy has been moving, and I feel like it has eroded down to an extremely intense restlessness. Yes, Often it does. Yep. Like I'm done with all this, done with consciousness, done with being human. I want out. Yes, that's the voice of restlessness, of energetic restlessness. It's not really, okay, it's not really the voice of energetic restlessness. This is what the mind will say when you really push it against the wall. When you drop into what's underlying all of the identity structures, what's underlying that first movement of aversion, pulling back, before even perhaps that the identity structure was formed. When you're really in contact with that there's this energetic restlessness underneath it. Restlessness isn't an awesome word, but it's a reasonably good word. But I might call it life force, actually, at this point. It's an animating force. It's the animating force, right? You can start to see it in things, actually in animals and like the environment. It's pretty cool. But when that animating force comes into contact with the human mind or brain or whatever you want to say, and it turns into, or seems to turn into an identity structure. That's not actually what's happening. It never actually turns into anything. But the identity structure allows us to numb ourselves to what's really happening at the very basic energetic level. So when you've stripped all that away and all of a sudden you're touching that somehow, you're touching the energetics of that, what the mind is going to say is going to really, it's like the gloves come off. The mind will be like, I just want to kill myself. I just rather not be here. Like it's a very strange thing. And the feeling of trying to pull back from that energetic restlessness is so uncomfortable. You may not even know it's happening. It may feel like it's part of the energetic restlessness, but it's not. There's a dissociation that's trying to happen. That's the fundamental dissociation of mind identification. And it can't. At some point, it can't do it anymore. You can't pull back. And so it's just that powerful energy, very powerful. But the thoughts they could be very dark or whatever. At the same time, it's really helpful at this stage to recognize thoughts as thoughts still. To be like, oh, the thought that says I want out is making two assumptions. There's an I, and that I wants out. 3 assumptions, that there's something to be out of, or that there's an inside. None of that's true. Damn, holy shit, it's just energy. Like all of this is just energy. That's kind of the best you can do at this point. Sometimes you really just have to feel it. And all of this will calm in various ways, and it will also, the insight around what I'm talking about will clarify for you, for sure. It may take some time. I can't give you a timeline on that, but it's okay. And I know you're not in any danger of hurting yourself. I can tell by your comments. But I get why people take drugs when feeling like this. Yes, for sure. Mm-hmm. This process shows you a lot. Shows you a lot about human nature, even if it's not your own particular pattern. You may not have everybody has some propensity for some kind of addiction or whatever, but you may not have an over addiction to substances, but you suddenly understand them. And they actually start making a lot of sense. You look at some of the ways people have grown up and some of the traumas they've gone through and pervasive childhood trauma and stuff. And you're like, yep, I understand it. I understand why you'd want to kill yourself. I understand why you'd want to be in oblivion. I understand why you'd want to drink yourself till there's, you're just completely out of touch with your emotions and the pain inside of you. Of course, makes total sense, So the beauty of this is it really opens your soul to suffering, through your own suffering and then through the suffering of everyone. Thank you for sharing that, Pamela. So it's Vern. Oh, he's not commenting to somebody else. Okay. Andy, noticing thoughts doesn't seem to provide relief anymore. Yeah. Emotions feel 10 times more intense. This character really wants relief from thought circles. Is there really nowhere to go for relief? I think I made a video recently about this, but the key for you is you've learned, I think, half of the process of disidentification from thought. Seeing thoughts as thoughts. Very, very important. But it becomes a sort of watcher state. It becomes you start to get tired of the effort of making distance. You get tired of the dissociation. And it's uncomfortable inherently. So now just move toward the thought. Move toward the thought. Right? Noticing it requires, in a sense, I'm just making a mini map of this for you. Noticing requires you to pull back. You have to see something as an object to notice it, right? Maybe just look into that. The noticer of thoughts is itself a thought. Very important, because then there's nowhere to go. And then you can orient such that any thought that arises or stirs or begins to form is already what you are. Some people call this the insight of I am everything. Because everything you've ever thought about, everything you've ever doubted, anywhere you've ever been, any person you can think of right now, all of it is all made out of the same stuff. Just consciousness. So there's nothing, you don't have to notice thoughts as thoughts per se. Now, you just rest in the nature of thought itself, which is consciousness. That's it. Okay? That's to find that balance I talk about in the book between intention and surrender in the space of thought and consciousness. I have some videos on this. Also, check out my consciousness playlist. That'll help you a lot, I think, here. Okay, it's from Bjarki. Hi, Angelo. When I look at an object, it feels like two things are happening. The mind saying, yes, that is a chair, and no kind of label. And no kind of label, just a sense of it being. Does this make sense? Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah. Yep. The question really at this stage of things, I would say, is does the thing to look at is, does the thought, label, belief get more attention than the experience itself? And or does it distract you? And or does it actually seem to make it feel separate? Right? Make the chair experience separate. I don't mean the label chair, I mean that, right? The visual experience of it. Does the label make it feel out there? If it does, keep looking, right? Good question. Stephen, hey brother, I had this really weird experience 2 nights ago. For about an hour, moments of my past came up, and then what appeared immediately incinerated. I felt sadness, but at the same time, okay. Yeah. I've heard of these sorts of things. I've had these sorts of things as well. I had a friend who this happened to in a really profound way right as he was waking up. He noticed like all these past memories that were just coming. He said he's never had anything like this at all. He just suddenly had these film reels of past memories, formative moments as a child and different times in which he identified when he said, oh, I'm a me, and that's defining me, that experience, that fear, that person, that whatever. And he said all of a sudden there was these reels of seeing all the moments he was identifying growing up and stuff. And then all of a sudden it was like the reels separated and it was kind of into a sort of space, but he said it wasn't space. But they separated and he realized the identity structure just didn't exist at all. It was just a collection of memories. Yeah, big awakening with that. This is from Anne. I heard you talking about emotional and energetic bodies. What is the difference? How do I know when I'm touching into one or another? Well, I would say if you ask yourself, what emotion am I feeling? That's helpful. But I would say don't analyze it too much. Just see if there's a label, right? Oh man, I'm feeling, this is grief, right? Yeah, there's grief here. And just feeling it. That's the emotion body, right? Sadness. Or what am I feeling? Kind of feel some rage. Something's feeling like hot. That's the emotion body. It's not a place, right? It's a temporospatial phenomenon, let's say. It's just what's happening in this moment, right? Energetic body is usually a little more, well, it is more subtle. Energetics being directly perceived, I'll say it this way, there's usually not any inclination to label anything as an emotion. There's not a sense of contraction usually. It's not a heady experience at all. It's just energetic. You can feel, it's almost like waves of energy. Now, some people, as I was mentioning earlier, get a different kind of bonus plan when it comes to energy. They get Kundalini. And they can get it early. They can get it before awakening. And that's very intense. And it's obvious that it's energetic, and it's rarely associated directly with a certain kind of emotion. But when I talk about energetic body, I mean really the energetics arising from conditions. That's it. Nothing more than that. Okay. Oh, and Anne also said, are there different levels in shadow work? There are different levels in shadow work, but it's like an onion. You know, you work at one level, and when you're working at a level, it's not like you know that. It's not like you're going, oh, I'm at this level. You're just feeling intense emotions and processing, and maybe having some kind of therapeutic modality to help you through it, or whatever's going on, or a somatic modality, but you're processing a layer of emotion. And then what often happens is you feel a lot of relief and clarity after that. And later on, you may come back to a similar emotion or the same kind of emotion, and all of a sudden you're processing a more intense version of it. Like I mentioned earlier, you can even conclude, the mind could conclude that, oh man, this is horrible. I can't handle this. Like, this is too much, right? Or I'm going backwards, or why does this keep happening? These are thoughts. But then the experience will be even more intense, right? That's deeper. That's the deeper layer of shadow work. So as you go deeper into the emotion body, and I will say, the ability to go into the deepest shadow stuff really, in my experience, is accessed through realization. In deeper realization, you have a much more access to very, very primal, sometimes almost like undifferentiated experiences. But they're way more direct. And usually by this time you have more instinct that it does. There's no need to label it, analyze it, maybe even any kind of practice. You just really just embody it, or let it embody you. So that's the deeper shadow work, deeper shadow stuff. Yeah. Also tends to come and go more rapidly, I would say, at deeper stages. It's more intense, but it moves through quicker. There's less clinging, less attachment, less identification, less thoughts based on it. Good question. Oh, okay. And then the last part of her question is, for example, beliefs, emotion states deeper into more, do they turn, like, as you go deeper into more energetic stuff? Not necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily. You might call it energetic, but I would almost call it more engulfing or more intense in those deeper emotions. But they can come with energetics as well. But you can definitely experience energetics without any emotion tone at all. For me, if it comes with an emotion tone, I wouldn't call it an emotion tone. It's more like sort of the nature of raw experience. It comes with a peace. It's like there's a peace to it, and a deep settledness, and an intimacy with the energetic body. I'm a little hesitant to say this stuff because I don't want people to like solidify it and judge their own experience based on what I just said, because these are words. I don't know if I could even relate what it is, but it's obvious experientially. Okay, cool. Good questions. This is from Infinite Nothing. I was wondering, what's your opinion about Dr. Joe Dispenza? I've been asked this a few times. I really don't know much about him, actually. I know very, very little. I don't know. I probably know more that other people have opinions about Joe Dispenza than anything that he actually says. So I apologize. I don't have enough time to investigate a lot of these people that people recommend or suggest. So yeah, can't really comment. Nomi says, you often say you don't have to understand this. Can you explain that a little so I can understand it? That's clever. I don't think I can. I mean, I can address what you're talking about. Oh, I'm not drinking beer, by the way. I'm drinking ginger beer. So I found this stuff at Kroger, like it's a grocery store that's a chain in the United States. But it's ginger beer without alcohol and without sugar. And it's so good. I love it. It's like my favorite thing to drink now. It's like a little spicy. It's so good. Okay. So why don't you have to understand what I'm talking about? What I'm inclined to say at this moment is it's just so simple. It's so simple. What I'm talking about is stupidly simple. It's laughably simple. Like if I could wave a magic wand and you could experience what I'm experiencing, so to speak, it might make you laugh because it's just so simple. There's nothing added, nothing fabricated. There's a basic appearance that is non-dualistic. It's not in space because it's not in space. Non-dualistic means not in space. Non-dualistic means space is an illusion. That's what it means, actually. So it has that quality, but it's not a positive quality. It's a negative quality because it's what's not there. But it is, I guess you could say, it's interpreted maybe through the physiology as a sort of peace, an intimacy. It's very intimate, but it's simple. Nothing special. No concepts needed. Now, a very practical way of answering your question is that you don't have to understand this could be infuriating to hear by some people, infuriating, but the answer is, the statement is true, and that is some of the people I see wake up the fastest don't understand this stuff. They don't care to. Not that they're dumb or anything. They're just not inclined towards doctrine. They don't care to understand the terms. It's an empathic awakening. Lisa Carnes talks about this. Who, by the way, is someone who you can just be around her. Like if anyone in Europe who wants to go to a retreat, go to a Lisa Carnes retreat. She has them periodically. Just being around her, you feel it. It's a felt thing. It's an energetic, visceral experience. She doesn't have to open her mouth, you know. She transmits that way, but she also talks about waking up that way. She woke up through empathy, essentially, through empathically picking up the energies of people around her. So that's why it can be helpful, as Eckhart Tolle says, to be around awakened people. He says it in his book very explicitly. It has an effect, and I know it does. I see it. So yes, I seem like I'm just giving you a bunch of information and knowledge, pointings, practices. Like that's what it looks like is happening. But the transmission really isn't at that level. It's just so simple. And yeah, the people I sometimes see wake up very quickly, especially early stages of awakening, or first awakening, let's say. They don't really care about knowledge. They're not trying to learn anything. They just sometimes needed permission, strangely, to let go into where they've always known they wanted to let go into. And it's not that strange, actually. The reason I say strangely is because it's what I do is so simple sometimes. It's like there's a place in you want to go to. Maybe someone will hear this because this is going to be public, right? So maybe someone will hear this. There's a place within you that you've always wanted to go into, but you've partially been afraid to, and probably more importantly, you've been told not to. You've been told not to explicitly and implicitly by communications your whole life. Go there. It's safe to go there, and that's where you want to go. That's what I'm talking about. That simple statement I just made really works for some people. So that's an answer to your question of, you don't have to understand. This is not about understanding. This is about instinct. Great question. Okay. Ashley says, the Art of Living is an amazing facility. The staff is amazing. I can't say enough good about the Art of Living. I'm not paid to say that at all, but I've done retreats in various places, and they're just awesome. They can handle any size group. People are super kind. The food's awesome. It's vegetarian, but it's really good vegetarian. Many choices. They have a giant meditation hall. Like they've told me it was the biggest in North America, and it probably is. I mean, it's just giant. They have other smaller halls. It's just a really cool place. I would recommend people go there if you just want to do a 3-day retreat on your own or something. It's beautiful. Gorgeous outdoors. It's in the Blue Mountains. Yeah, Blue Mountain Range. I'm bad with remembering names of mountain ranges and such, but anyway, it's gorgeous. From Aaron. Hi, Angelo. Can you speak on what it means to have forgiveness for the moment when there is realization of no separate self? and what role forgiveness plays in coming into awareness of who and what I am. Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. So it's so simple. There's an absolute forgiveness. People have done the worst kind of shit. I totally understand it. I don't approve of it. They need justice, has to be part of our society, right? But I totally get it. I can see how someone's conditioning is so dense, and they didn't have a chance. People who become abusers and violent and so forth. Like, yeah, so there's almost like an instant forgiveness for that. They're just playing out their conditioning, you know? And certain individuals may stand out as the one who committed the violence, but they may have been surrounded by violence their whole life. There might have been violent people around them their whole life, and they're just the one that, the straw that broke the camel's back, you know? So there's an unconditional love that arises from that, and an understanding. And it doesn't actually result in bad boundaries. It actually results in compassionately setting good boundaries, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I like how you put in here the separate self, because it is the fundamental illusion is the separate self, and that does cause all the trouble. All the trouble. There's a really cool scene. I've posted about this in my videos before. Maybe my favorite scene in any movie ever, and it's certainly in one of my favorite movies ever, which is Revolver. It's a gangster movie, but it's not about that. It's about ego, actually. It's very clever the way they did it. But there's a scene where they're hitting golf balls off the roof, and the main character is Andre 3000 is actually I don't know if you know who that is. He's the band Outcast. Really talented guy, really talented musician and singer. The song Hey Ya, Hey Ya. But anyway, he's the lead singer of the band, and he's in this movie. He's an actor, but he's explaining to the main character about essentially ego, but it's kind of like collective ego is what he's talking about in this scene. And he says all of this. He's using the moniker he, because they're talking about it as a person, as a super gangster, but it's not an actual gangster. It's ego, right? And they call him Sam Gold in the movie, and he's talking about Sam Gold. He says, "Do you know who Sam Gold is?" He's telling the main character, and he's like, "He's up here," and he's telling you that he's you. He's telling in real time what's actually happening in his own mind, and his thoughts are saying this as he's being explained to. And he says, in all of this is his world. He controls it. He tells you what to do and when to do it. And you think he's your best friend. And then he says, he's behind all the pain there ever was. He's behind every crime ever committed. And you think he's your best friend. That voice in your mind. Yeah, so good. So when you have that voice in your mind and you're completely identified with it, and you grew up in a family that was abusive, and you never had anybody nurture you, never had anyone care about you, and you were abused, physically abused, maybe sexually abused, and you had head injuries, so you have impulse control, developmental delays, maybe, certainly learning disabilities. You didn't study hard at school. You may have dropped out of school. Then you got into drugs, right? Then you ended up committing a crime somehow, and then you got, run in with law enforcement, and you're incarcerated. Like, what chance did you really have? If you went through that, can you really judge another person going through it and saying, I wouldn't have done what they did? You can't, right? So there you go. What you can do is wake up. Anyone can wake up. And anyone can do shadow work. That's why I love the Inside Circle group. They did deep, profound, probably the most profound transformative shadow work I've ever seen in that group in New Folsom Prison. And James McCleary, who is the sort of elder of the elders of all those guys, incredible human being. So he's the He was the executive producer of the movie The Work. He's one of the 4 facilitators that came to Kentucky to do these day-long intensives with people. And they're coming back next year to Art of Living in May. So that's what you can do. No matter how much violence you've had or not had, conditioning, doesn't matter. Terminal uniqueness, you think your problem's worse than anyone else in the world? Doesn't matter. You can still wake up if you're inclined, and you can still do shadow work. And either and or both will benefit you. But the average mind-identified human being, they're just playing out their conditioning. Even if it's good conditioning, even if it's quote-unquote successful conditioning, they may just be suffering as much as anybody else. They just have conditioning that is endorsed by society and that is functional in society rather than dysfunctional. They can still be suffering, though. And they're still carrying around the seed of separation, the seed of duality, and sharing it. Holding the space, not space, but holding the apparatus of ego together for all of us. Right? Everybody's got their dirty little fingers in the cookie jar when there's mass mind identification. Oh, good question. Okay, Logan Marks from Shenandoah Valley. I just like saying Shenandoah Valley. I've never been to Shenandoah Valley, but I bet it's gorgeous. This is from Still Point. Hi, Angelo. Your videos have been invaluable to me. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you so much for all the sharing you do. I look forward to the retreat in Boone. Sweet. See you there. Make sure you tell me who you are, because I won't know who Still Point is. Jennifer. They have made a lot of improvements over the year at Art of Living. They've redone the dining hall floor. Cool. Renovated the balcony. They have a gorgeous balcony. Giant, gorgeous balcony. They added a lot of benches through the property. New walking trail. Sweet. Such a cool place. From Kathy McCoy. Angelo, I'm late to join, but hello from New Mexico. Hello. If anyone is interested in New Mexico, I love Santa Fe, New Mexico. Because if you like art galleries, tons of art galleries there. And the first Meow Wolf is there, interactive art exhibit. It's called the House. I think it's called the House of No Return. I can't remember the name of that specific one, but they're a blast. So anyway, just thought of that. I haven't been there in a while. Jeannie Stevenson. Live retreats are amazing, and I was surprised how good the online retreats are and very affordable. Yeah, onlines are powerful too. Not quite, maybe not quite the same as in person, but you know, if you have the discipline to actually do all the meditation rounds throughout the day on your own, do a silent retreat, the online retreat's very powerful, very transformative. From IBH HSV, hello Angelo. Hello. It's from Justin. I really enjoyed your talks on the ox herding pictures. I noticed the video stopped at the 8th picture. Have you spoken on video about the 9th and 10th pictures before? I'm very interested. That's one of those projects you gotta have some projects in your life where you start them and never quite finish them. At least I do, I guess. I need to get back to those. Yeah, I really, and I love the 9th ox herding picture is one of my very favorites. And the 10th is obviously what we inspire to, right? Or we aspire to. It's the Bodhisattva's sort of goal. But the 9th ox herding picture is beautiful. I quote it all the time. But I'll get back on those at some point. Okay. Scrolling up here. Sorry, guys. Lost my track of where I'm at. A lot of people here today. This is cool. Ooh la la. If someone has glimpses or more, but never experienced Kundalini, does it mean the new understanding is shallow or the dense energy is trapped? Nope. Definitely not. I know people who have had almost zero Kundalini and they're deeply realized. From Angie Curry. Hi, Angelo. We're able to share a room at the London retreat. Are we able to share a room? Right now, all the rooms we have are single occupancy. The way they have it set up at Waldingham School is you have to rent entire halls. So we rented the single occupancy halls because the vast majority of people want single occupancy. And yeah, it's based on the room block that was available and how we had to partition it out. We did all single occupancy rooms. Thanks for asking. Okay. Oh, and she said also, I saw that you wear a hoodie with a woman sitting in the chair with her feet propped up on a crescent moon. Where can I get that one? Oh gosh. I don't know. The only way I would know is to Google what you just wrote here. Hoodie with, yeah, that. But I don't know where that one came from. I think someone gave it to me as a gift. It's from Aaron. My wife has a very short temper, and even though I know she is me, and is a litmus test to see how much shadow work I still need, I told her to take a hike yesterday. LOL. Well, the LOL makes me feel like maybe she took it okay. Take a hike. I hope he didn't mean permanently, but yeah. So if somebody has anger issues around you and they tend to direct it at you, it can be really challenging. And people who have anger issues who don't direct it at you can be challenging because you just feel it all the time, right? And sometimes talking to them about it doesn't work well. Like they may not want to acknowledge that they have a lot of repressed anger or something. But, sometimes you just got to have that conversation with them, even though it's going to be uncomfortable. You got to tell. It's important to tell people what is acceptable and what is not acceptable to you. May sound harsh or rigid or something, but that's fine, to say that. And some things are marginally acceptable. If someone loses their temper periodically, it's probably not that big of a deal. If they do it constantly, it has an effect on you, and I think they have a right to know that, and you have a right to say it. This is Dakota from Michigan. Hello. I can't wait for next May at Art of Living. Yes. You're going to love it. It's really fun. It in some ways, it's rather different than the silent retreats, because silent retreat is silent practice the whole time, samadhi, just kind of maintaining that deep practice the whole time if you can. It's not always that simple, obviously. A lot of times there's shit tons of thoughts in your mind and emotional stuff going on. But this is different because it's like a conference as well, and we're not in silence, so you get to meet everybody. And I loved it. I love talking to people. I love meeting all the different people, and any facilitators I have there, you'll chat with them casually between meditation rounds and between things, and we eat our meals together. It's really cool. I really like that, because like what happens at Art of Living is I'm a social guy. Like I like to meet people, but I just don't have time. Like at Art of Living, when we're setting up in the morning, like we're doing sound checks, like I can't really chat with people too much. I try to make time to go through the audience and say hi to people before we go silent and stuff, but I just don't have too much time. And at the end, like I have time, but everybody's leaving, right? And so I talk to people for a handful of hours after retreat usually, but it's a bit pressured and people are trying to leave and go, and but it's kind of cool when you have the whole week where you can casually just interact with people. I think it's really fun. So, and it's powerful. It's so cool, the things we do that we've added to that conference. Yeah, it's really neat. This is from Aaron. Oh, okay, here we go. So the next part of the question though is as comfortable as arguing is, it shows that there is still shadowy work to be done if there is reactivity on my behalf. Well, okay, so I think I know what you're asking here, but so say someone around you just gets angry a lot, right? When you're not around that situation, you're not around that person, if it's still coming into consciousness and it feels triggering and you're like, damn it, like they shouldn't direct that anger at me or something, right? Like that's what I want them not to do, and then they're doing it. Or what I want them to do is treat me with respect or something, right? And they're not doing that, right? If you can work through reactivity that way outside of that situation, because it's coming to you in this moment, that's great. Do that reactivity work. But don't interpret the fact that it's uncomfortable to have somebody direct anger at you. Don't necessarily interpret that as your reactivity, because it's not, right? Your reactivity is your reaction to it. But you can have no reaction, and it can still be very uncomfortable to be around an angry person. And then what happens often is, instead of reactions, you just have simple actions, like see you later. You just stop talking to that person. It's much easier to make boundaries, I think, when you don't have reactivity. So it's an opportunity to look at your own reactivity if you have strong beliefs that are causing you to internally react or externally react in relation to that. And at the same time, it's an opportunity for you in real time to set boundaries, and say, you have the right to tell somebody the impact they're having on you. Thank you for sharing that. This is from Catalin. Noticing sensation in the body is a thought. Yes. And this points to the fact that the attention is a form of thought. Yes, I think that's true, yeah. And there is no actual attention as a continuous aspect of experience. Continues. Attention seems to be the feeling of an arrow from me to a thing, and it feels like consciousness under tension. Does this make sense? What can you say about attention, please? I think you're right in that description. I think you're correct in your assessment of what attention is. But what I want to say about attention is not that I want to explain to you what it is. What I want to say is how you can use it. It's very valuable as a tool. And I have a whole chapter in my book on attention, and that's why I have a chapter in my book on attention. And I specifically describe how to practice knowingly using attention, right? If there's one thing I can say that's the most valuable takeaway when it comes to attention is getting to a place where you are aware of when you are knowingly directing attention or using attention, and or even know where your attention is, and when you're not. Because when you're not, it's often in thought. So it's being directed to thought constantly with mind identification or thought identification, and you don't even realize it. That's unconsciousness, right? So to be able to actually redirect that attention is of huge value. So does it matter what it is? Not really. Cool. This is infinite nothingness. Or infinite nothing, excuse me. Could enlightenment be equated to restore to factory setting? Yeah, it's exactly what it is. You just can't find the button, right? So got to do some work. This is from Shaul. Is there a distinction between thoughts and other consciousness phenomena, like intentions, decisions? Okay. Is there a distinction between thoughts and intentions? No. Decisions? No. Visions? No. Downloads? Maybe. But yeah, I think I would make a distinction there. Music? Well, music, there's a distinction, right? Unless it's just music playing in your head. Creative ideas? Creative ideas often come through with an associated thought, but I think the creativity underneath that does not require thought to manifest. And the source of the creativity is not thought. Cool. There you go. This becomes practical when working with thoughts. That part I'm not 100% sure on. It depends what you mean by working with thoughts, I guess. Yeah. But if you're sitting there and I'm telling you, hey, formulate a practice in unbound consciousness, and if you're doing that, and in that practice you're going, well, this thought's important because it's this kind of thing, and that's this, and that. Those are just thoughts, right? Does that make sense? So meta thought or thinking about thought is always just thoughts, and it's really unnecessary. I hope that's clear. Maybe it's not. All right. Soph, perspective on free will. Okay. Find out who the one that has free will is, or seems to have free will is. Show me that one, and then we can talk about free will. Kehan, great advice as always. Just a thank you, Angelo. You're welcome. Trusting the process and it is clearing. TRE, just get cramps, but tapping is having some result. Awesome. No more headaches and pressure, shadow work. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, TRE, some people really get a great response out of it. Other people like not much at all. And that's okay. Same with anything. Qigong, therapy, all the different things, right? So, Catalin, I can totally see how shadow work and improving the character can seem similar and how they can mean completely opposite things. Oh, yes. Definitely. Ashley, feeling things full on. I have never related to a description so much as what you just described there, Angelo. Yeah. Feelings get more and more and more direct. And this, I'm just going to make a sort of side comment about this. This is one of the obstructions in realization, or barriers that comes up, is that we're so good at repressing emotions that we don't even know we're repressing emotions. That's part of the whole system of repression. So we have built-in beliefs that we don't even realize that are something like, I need to not feel this. I need to not feel certain emotions, right? We have these beliefs built in, and we have a whole bunch of behaviors based on those beliefs. And we don't even know we have the belief. And we certainly don't know we're repressing emotions chronically. So that's not the obstruction I'm talking about. The obstruction is when you start disidentifying, when identity starts to disentangle itself from itself, when things start becoming clearer and clearer, the tendency that's underneath all of that and the beliefs about emotions are still strong. And it can be surprising how much resistance we have to emotions, to just feeling. But at some point, you'll realize resistance is futile, like the Borg. And then you'll just be feeling those emotions. But they can be rather surprisingly intense. That's all I can say. At some point, there's a maturating that happens where you realize that it's fine that they're intense. It's fine that they're just what they are. But yeah, they're big and they're powerful and they take you over, and it's okay. And you don't have to act out on them. I'm not equating a big experience of emotion with a big reaction, demonstration, and or dysfunctional behavior pattern around emotions. That's totally different. Those are totally different things. So I just want to be clear on that. Thank you, Ashley, as always. Federico says, another question. I'm at a new job which produces a lot of stress and anxiety. It's a lot of work compared to before. So now I have no free time. Any advice to handle this? I feel I have no free time. Sorry. I think it was just a misspelling. There are ways to practice no matter what you're doing, really. Attention in the body, body sensations, sounds, attention on if you work with your hands, everything you do with your hands are sensations and the fingertips. Feel. If you're writing on a piece of paper, feel the pen moving across the paper. Can you actually feel the sensation of the ballpoint on the paper? You can. Put your attention there instead of up here, right? When you're going to and from work, sensations of the hands on the wheel, steering wheel, feet on the floor. If you're on a train on the way to work, the movement of the train, how's that feel? The sounds, take in all the sounds at once. Let them replace the thoughts momentarily. Just take it all in. It's a moment of meditation. You can do this all the time. There's always opportunities. Just look for them. So it's kind of like if you look for what you don't have, you'll see it. If you look for what you do have, you'll see it. This is Cherie's asking, is the tuition for the May Art of Living retreat the same as December? No, the cost isn't the same. They're different costs. It's more expensive probably because the number of people I have to hire to go there is a lot. It's a lot of people. So I still think it's reasonable compared to other retreats, other prominent teachers' retreats and so forth. And you're getting a heck of a lot. So, but it is more expensive. That's the kind of retreat. So this retreat, I probably won't break even on at all. May lose money. All right. Well, Angelo won't, because Angelo doesn't pay himself from the company. Simply Always Awake pays for all this stuff. Ben Burke says, Angelo, thanks as always for all you do. My pleasure. It's my pleasure. Ben says, I found your Amplified series very powerful, especially notice a thought. That's just this. Catalan, RE energetics. I have had sensation well up in my feet and at the base of the spine, sometimes intensifying, and I feel like it gets stopped. Anyone here have any guidance? Feels like it gets stuck. I mean, you could work with somebody who directly works with Kundalini. TRE may really help, but if you do TRE and you feel a stuckness of something like this, it can help to do it with a facilitator at least once, maybe online, over Zoom they can help, or in person. I've heard of people having situations like this that actually do get unstuck through use of trembling exercises, but there are a lot of other energetic ways of doing it as well. And or don't perseverate on it too much. If it's stuck something, it'll loosen at some point. You can also talk directly to it and ask questions of it. Is this related to an emotion? Is this trying to tell me something? And just give it plenty of time to answer, like days, weeks. But it could be something like that as well. Nomi, Just so excited for those going to the Boone retreat, and we'll have the chance to experience zero distance with the observatories of Tomas. Yeah. Yeah. My dearest brother and the one who introduced me to all of this. Now, are you saying he's actually your brother? Oh, he is. I never made that connection. Yeah, Tomas is a trip. He is so passionate about what he does, and he has spent years and years and lots of money and effort and heart to create these observatories, and they're really potent. They're powerful. They do what he intended them to do, and it's a lot of work for him and his team to set that up and do it all week long. So we're going to get as many people as we can through it, but it is a process, so we can't. It takes time, and we have limited daylight hours and stuff, so we can't put everyone through it. But we will use the lottery, and we'll get as many people as we can through it. They're really cool. But if anyone is interested in not going to the retreat and/or is not able to do it at the retreat, you can always contact him, Tomas, and he set up something. You know, people have gone to visit him where he has them in his yard and stuff. So, okay. Genial. I've had about 3 months of hard things, starting with bed bugs, fleas, 10 or more things like bad car, plumbers, appliances, sick dog. It is unusual, accepting but weary. That'll tire you out. I feel for you. Really, I feel for you. That's rough. That's hard. Man, sometimes life throws so much at us, doesn't it? All I can say is, I know this is terrible. That's good ego attrition. Even when it sucks going through all that over and over, problem after problem, health problems, financial problems, relationship problems, like sometimes it just piles on you, you know. But it's just grinding you in some sense. But it is good ego attrition, you know. Best you can do sometimes is just go, okay, I trust life. Life is showing me what I need to see right now, and it's showing me what I need to feel right now, and I'll trust it. I'll do one thing at a time, and I'll do the next thing, and I won't fight it any more than I can help. And yeah, and I'm glad you're going through it, accepting but weary. I hope it calms down for you soon. Infinite nothing. What should I do with feelings of being broken and not enough? What I would say about these is, these are very intense feelings, right? And it can be really helpful with these to really ask yourself, what feeling am I feeling associated with this conclusion of being not enough, broken? And it could be more than one feeling, and it probably will be. But just recognize, okay, feeling broken or not enough. These are interpretations. Okay, there's something here. I'm not going to ignore it. But let me set the interpretation aside for a moment and go to the emotion body and just ask, what am I feeling? Shame, guilt, resentment, doubt, fear, helplessness. Like what's here? Use an emotion wheel. Look at it. See, get used to feeling the emotions a little bit more purely if you can, one at a time. You may find two emotions stuck together. That's okay. Give each one space. So again, this is about clear seeing, clear feeling. It can be really helpful to differentiate the emotions from the thoughts and interpretations based on them. And that feeling of being not enough or being broken, or, people say all kinds of things to me. I feel like a piece of shit. I feel like I hate myself. I feel worthless. I hear these things, and they're okay. These are thought interpretations of a lot of times repressed emotions, conclusions about ourselves based on past experiences. There may be a memory that set it up such that you concluded about yourself that you're broken, right? Or that you're not worth love, or worthy of attention. All these things, right? Unpack it, find out what's there, and really touch into all this with love, compassion, understanding, and peace. Patience is what I was trying to say. Give it time. It's sacred work, even though it's really uncomfortable, gritty work. Sound Bath. That's a great name. Username Sound Bath. Hi, Angelo. What advice do you have on setting up a practice where you can meditate for 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour at night? Yes. Do it. So good. I did that through a lot of my undergrad training in med school, 2 hours a day, because I loved it and I needed it. If I could recommend like a basic meditation, basic meditation schedule, I would say, now for some people, I understand this is not possible. Well, some people don't think it's possible, but it is. Like, they're like, I can only meditate for 5 minutes. It's like, come to a retreat, you'll meditate for a week straight, and you'll realize you can meditate for more than 5 minutes. But sometimes you just, you could be a single parent with 3 kids and working full time. And yeah, I understand you may not have this much time. But if you try to carve out the time, you might find you have more than you realize. But yeah, if I could recommend a sort of schedule, I would say meditate an hour in the morning or an hour at night or 2 hours in the morning. If you can meditate 2 hours a day, that's very powerful. Not everyone can do it. When I started meditating, it was a TM, and they said 15 to 20 minutes twice a day. And they emphasized being consistent. And I was pretty consistent. I wasn't totally consistent, but I was pretty consistent. I would meditate 20 minutes twice a day. And I remember, it's funny, I remember having this mental barrier about like meditating like 30 or 40 minutes. Seemed like that would be a way long time. I don't even know why I thought that, because it wasn't hard to meditate for 20 minutes most of the time. So now I realize I can sit and meditate all day long. And I love it. Okay, it's from Steven. Hi, Angelo. This is my first live. Welcome. The desire to wake up has been the major driving force in my life for 3 years. Awesome. You described how Adyashanti had to wake up yesterday, and I totally relate to that. Right on. I'm with you. That's how it was for me. The moment I realized it was a thing, and I sensed what it was, I was all in. I didn't care about anything else. That was it. My question is about addictive behaviors. Any thoughts on the urge to partake in them? I wouldn't get too distracted with that unless you have an addiction right now that is directly damaging your health, relationships, or career, meaning it's like a pretty malignant kind of addiction process right now. Maybe you need to address that first. Other than that, whether you smoke pot, smoke cigarettes, chew tobacco, drink some alcohol here and there, have other addictions, online addictions, like, I don't care. Wake up. Strike while the iron's hot. You don't need to eliminate anything to wake up. You don't need to add anything to wake up. You don't need to realize anything to wake up. But it can be distracting if you get in your head about it, right? Like, oh, I got to stop doing this before I wake up and blah, blah, blah. It's like, usually those are just, I don't know if this is true for you, but often that's just someone negotiating. You're negotiating with the process a little bit. Like, you're like, oh, I'm concerned about that this will prevent me, blah, blah, blah. But what you're really doing is just using that moment to get into your mind about it. Waking up doesn't take time. It happens now. Yeah. Do it. Pamela. Feels very much like the moment I was called into being human. There was massive resistance. Like, I have a lazy soul that just never wanted to hang out. That's cute. I have a slight preference for Pamela. Okay, I'll remember that. That started when I lived in Palestine, and the people started calling me Bam, which sounded like bomb. Oh, that's not good. I steered people to call me Bamila. I love it. I'll call you Pamela. I like it. I like longer names usually, like instead of shortened. Infinite Nothing. The ego thought Kundalini would be cool, but it sucks, and it brings on feelings of shame. I might say it comes with feelings of shame. It's associated with shame, yeah. But it's not necessarily causal. But yeah, it can be, yeah, intense. Some people are like, I want to raise my Kundalini. I want to activate my Kundalini. I'm like, do be careful what you ask for. Really. Maybe you do want to. Maybe that's your path, but be careful what you ask for. Oh, Jennifer. Yeah, I love ginger. I love it. That's such a cool flavor. Such a great flavor. Ashley, talking about not needing terminology, and yeah, you move intuitively for sure. But you've already gone through that first gateless gate, so there you go. Amanda Silverberg, I love your name. Lisa, yeah, she's great. Marianne, hello. I feel this way when I look at photos or listen to Gangaji. There's something undeniable there. Gangaji's awesome. She's powerful. She's powerful medicine. She transmits very powerfully in the feminine spectrum. I love it. And the masculine spectrum, actually. She's really good. Really good. Dakota. I started out just trying to understand everything. And I think I just about intellectualized every single aspect of this. Yeah, it's okay. You can stop anytime. Peter. How can I find this stream on my laptop? I can only see it on my phone. Oh gosh. I don't know, but look in the comments and someone may answer that for you, because some people know more than I do. But these social media things are tricky because they're a little different on every platform, and I don't know. But so you should, you should be able to always find live streams of mine by clicking on my channel. So any video you see of mine, or search Simply Always Awake on the YouTube search bar, you'll find Simply Always Awake. But any video I have says Simply Always Awake under it. Click on the Simply Always Awake. It's a hot link. It'll bring you to my main channel page. My main channel page has tabs, and it says like community tab. That's where you look for the announcements. It has one that says live. Click on the live one and you should see the live video. Or just navigating to my channel page should get you there. Right? Hopefully that works. This is from Dakota. I remember as a child, I would frequently say, I don't know. And people kept telling me it wasn't a good enough answer. That's too bad, isn't it? I don't know is a great answer. Hey, it was good enough for Bodhidharma. It's good enough for a little girl. This is Ashley. Art of Living was so good at communicating with me when I found out I wasn't going to be able to attend the retreat. The customer service was truly beyond expectations. That's saying a lot, right? These days. Urman. Hello, Angelo and everyone. First time here. Hey, welcome. Oh, Blue Ridge Mountains. That's right. Blue Ridge Mountains. That's where Art of Living Retreat Center is. Yeah, it's such a cool place. Let me scroll up a bit here and see if I missed anything. Okay, I'm back to where I was. This is from Nicole. I just returned from Lisa's retreat and absolutely loved it. Yay! It's got to be awesome. I would go to a Lisa retreat. Judy. Although I've had many glimpses, some very powerful, I feel as though there is something that wants to break through, but it feels stuck somewhere. Any pointers? I have a video called This Short Conversation Led to Awakening. It's Sasha Stevens I'm interviewing. I'm talking to her on stage at Art of Living. And then it was a short video, but it led to awakening because that was at the Art of Living retreat. She had an awakening. Then I interviewed her after awakening. And you can find that video as well. Should be able to see her name, Sasha Stevens. But my conversation with her kind of, I think might help you in that video. I'm this kind of thing where it's like you're close, you're kind of edging it, but something still feels a little stuck. Sometimes it's something you can do by working with somebody one-on-one, like in a way I can't just answer in a question here necessarily. But if you sit down face-to-face with someone over Zoom, they may be able to just break you through because it's just a subtle holding place in thought somewhere. It's a thought you're believing ultimately. You're believing some thought. Because when you stop believing your thoughts in real time, right? Like, so that's my answer to you. You can try a one-on-one with somebody, but you can also just look at the answer to the question, or look where this question points. What happens when I don't believe a single thought? And then just wait for the next thought and recognize that's a thought. What remains when you don't believe a single thought? And your mind might say space remains. That's a thought. So what remains when you don't believe a single thought, including that one? Or, oh, I always get stuck here. That's a thought. What happens when you don't believe a single thought, including that one? This is the way in. It's very simple. But again, if you work one-on-one with somebody, it may be helpful, or just listen to what I said and keep applying that. Amanda Silverberg. Santa Fe, waiting for you to come do a retreat here. I considered it. You know, it's funny. I couldn't find a good venue. I thought of doing a small retreat there at one point because I just like it. I had a whim to go, but it's a couple things. It's kind of expensive. And I couldn't find a good venue exactly. I tried a couple of hotels. I wasn't getting a good vibe. There is a big old convention center thing there. I didn't follow up too much with that. There were a couple things about it I wasn't sure about, but maybe in the future. It's a drive for me. It's not that far. It's like 5 hours, I think. Catalan says, the House of Eternal Return. Love the t-shirt print you have. Yeah, they have great shirts from the Meow Wolf places. Lulu Bear says, I absolutely love the Oxfording series. Yeah, me too. Whew. I mean, I love the originals. My videos, I don't remember them, but Jade, checking in from Edmonton. Hey, Jade, good to see you. Saranish just popped in to say hi. Good vibes from Arizona. Gareth, in your book, you talk about modulating your attention. Is this not the illusion of control, i.e. controlling your attention? Or is it the first steps before you see it as an illusion? So here's the thing about control and will and free will. If you talk yourself out of believing in free will conceptually, it does you no good. That's it. That's the statement. So if suddenly it's very obvious how spontaneous all appearances really are, that's great. That's an insight for you. But for that, don't worry about it, right? If by modulating your attention, you can lead that can lead to shifts, which it does, then why not, right? Now, even after the insight of, let's say, non-agency arises and it's clear, then you see that there is no, it's not that there's so much that there's no agency, it's that there's no agent. That's what's important. Then the illusion of agency is not a problem again. So if I say direct your attention, it can still happen. Sure, there's no one doing it, but it can still happen. So does that make sense? So it's not really a problem at any stage of realization unless you solidify it into a concept. That's why I generally don't talk about free will so much, because it just gives people so much mental crack to smoke. Okay, Zirkton. Speaking of projects, how's the list of therapists? I haven't gotten very far. So I had this idea of therapists who have some degree of realization. I hit some snags. It wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, partially because I really want to vet these therapists. I really want to make sure that I trust who I would put on a list like that. And I don't have a good way of doing that yet. It's in the back of my mind, though. It's something I want to do, and I will at some point. Ulala said, I went to Outside Circle in San Francisco last month. Rick Meisner was my group leader. So intuitive. He has free Zoom meetings on Wednesdays. I'm afraid, I'm always hesitant to say that out loud, to say that publicly. He does. It's Outside Circle. You can find them and they are free, but I don't want to blow up his meetings. I don't want to send like 50 people, you know. It is what it is. Yeah, he's really good. Rick's very, very good. He's a friend of mine. He's a great guy. Andy, going toward thought feels good. Each thought dissolves into being. That's right. That's someone who knows what unbound consciousness is experientially. David and Elaine, direct questions don't seem to arise so often now. Yeah. But every one of your answers to every question always clarifies and deepens my understanding here. Awesome. Profound gratitude for all you do. Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. Same thing with me. Like, you know, there's nothing I feel like I need to clarify as far as realization or anything like that. There's no sense of that. There's no sense of seeking anything at all. The realization is clear, and the anatta, no self-realization, primarily is clear. Kind of the most obvious thing. And yet, talking to people who are asking me questions about realization it does clarify something. It clarifies something in the relative, how to talk about it, how to point people to it, how to remove obstructions and more readily. Listening to other, well, it depends, but some other speakers, I guess, can be helpful. But still, meditation's helpful. All this stuff is helpful. And just because there's no real questions anymore doesn't mean that there's not value to clarifying one's insight in the relative. Jennifer, oh yeah, come by, say hi. That'd be awesome. Michael, how to do inquiry or one-pointed for a mind that has endless subtle thoughts, such as the expectation of another thought, space existing, etc., like an endless Russian doll nest. I would say try moving towards thoughts like we were talking about earlier. Yeah, there's a little bit of reactivity to thoughts that's still happening there, sounds like. Because you believe the thoughts. You believe there's something there. You believe there's something of value in those thoughts. And probably more importantly, underneath all of it, there's a fear of letting go of the attachment to thoughts. There's a fear of letting go of thinking. And yet, thinking is the disease of the human mind. This is Jade. I may cancel December retreat Art of Living. My dog Kiwi is approaching her end of life. Oh. I'm just sitting in unknown with love and compassion for her and my family. Yeah, I understand totally. James, what's up, dude? I haven't seen you in a while. When inquiring into space as a thought, is a good inquiry to just ask yourself, is space a thought? Sure, if it works. Yeah, and if you see that it is, like it's a mental image, it's like you're visualizing space somehow. Just ask yourself, what is this like when I set that aside? What does sound like when I set aside the space in which it seems to be propagating? What is sensation like without space? Right? Where is it now? It's still something. It's definitely appearing. Right? It's pretty cool. Glitter Muse. That's a great name. If ever venture off this hilltop again, the Art of Living retreat is something I have top of my list. It would be my first retreat in decades. Sangha is like a magnet currently. It is the next Buddha. Yes? Buddha field, right? Not the cult Buddha field. There's a Buddha field cult, or there was at some point. But the Buddha field concept, I like it a lot. DVD Mom. Last year, I've managed to cut out most distractions online in preparation for the retreat. Like last year. Of course, my mind has its own mind. It is investing new ways to distract, e.g. organizing projects. Yeah, but I will say that's awesome. I really like when people do this. When a retreat is imminent, the next few weeks, next month, something like that, or even the next week, prepare yourself for the retreat by just acknowledging, like, maybe I'm already in retreat. Maybe I can sit a little longer now. Maybe I can just kind of get in my attention into the spirit of being on retreat, being a little quieter, taking a little more time out. I'm trying to describe it, but for me, I don't even have to think about those things. It's like I can feel it. The retreat is already starting, yeah? And it's really powerful to do that. Kind of get yourself on retreat before retreat. Maybe you have a few days off and do it. That'd be awesome. Marianne says, I'm sorry I'm missing the retreat coming up. That's okay. We'll see you at another one, I'm sure. Mark. Thank you, Angelo. Love the teaching. Mark in Santa Fe. All right. A lot of Santa Fe going on today. It's pretty cool. This is Glitter Muse. I am musing on someday subtle energy work, Kundalini, with people in awakening process. I was in the old Leela identity, a Reiki master teacher. Any Sangha pointers? Oh, gosh. It's funny. It's not something I think about as such, actually. It's like, I feel like I just do the next thing that makes sense. Next video that makes sense, the next live, the next retreat. I don't really think about like managing Sangha or anything like that, just to be honest. It seems to happen very spontaneously and organically. I don't manage it or navigate it as such. Yeah, trust it. Trust it. Trust that people have a lot of insight they bring at all levels of experience and realization. They're also Buddhas. Everyone. That's my advice. Michael, there's infinite karmic loops in every direction and non-direction. Should I go pick one up again? Nah. Is it possible to not pick one up? Yes. Not doing is doing. Doing is not doing. The system is inescapable. That's right. Birds swim in the sea. Fish swim in the sky. Ashley, I'm proud of myself for 40 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon. That's good. Yeah. During the week with school. That's really good. Yeah. 2 hours. I mean, for me, there were a couple such big shifts that I just had to do it. Like I had to stabilize myself. Otherwise it was just like, I just got so immersed in everything around me, and there was the non-dual is really cool, but it's also non-dualistic as far as energetics of other people and emotions and mental processes. Like it was just like so absorbing into everything. I had to meditate a lot. It was nice also. Yeah. Ashley, I'd rather be on retreat than doing final exams. I feel ya. DVD Mon, per addictions or really habits, I've had good luck giving myself a deal. You can do X after you wake up. There you go. All right. Christian, I feel my previous, oh shoot, I lost myself on these again. Oh, here we go. I feel my previous awakening experiences without insight are an obstruction. There is some thoughtless thing waiting for another shift, it feels. Yeah. I would recommend readjusting your goals of practice from another event, because events happen not because you expect them, they just happen. I would recommend shifting your sort of goals of practice from another event or making something happen to seeing more clearly into and more deeply into what's happening right now. And you can do that through inquiry too, right? What is it that's expecting something else? Where is it? Where is that? Rest in it. Can you rest in the expectation? Because expectation is thought. Thought is consciousness. Where else are you going to go? Or can expectation apply to vivid presence? Sound right now. Does expectation apply to sound? Sound is just this. It's just here. Just as it is. So clear. As clear as being. So what is there to expect? Right? There's a lot of ways to work with this. Ben Burke says, just do YouTube in your browser. That's how I've joined this stream. There you go. Teresa, what does the category stealth mode mean in your playlist? Oh. So a while back, I had a lot of green screen backgrounds. And some people were saying it's too much, the colors moving and stuff, it's too much. And some people were saying the music's too much. I haven't gotten a lot of these complaints lately, probably because I haven't been doing the backgrounds, but I haven't gotten music complaints much either. But I had a bunch of people complaining. So they asked if I could release videos both with and without sound and visuals. And I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. It's just too much saving of giant videos and work and uploading and all of it. But what I said is I do some occasionally that don't have all that. And then I can just make a playlist for them. So that's what I did. I made a playlist, but I haven't added things to that playlist in a while. I'll have to maybe start remembering that. But it's basically without background sound and without visuals. That's what that is. But I probably haven't been using that playlist because no one's complained about it recently. In the Course of Miracles book, it says that you have to give all in order to receive all. I like that. Is that phrase that you are familiar with in the awakening process? I don't use that phrase, but it's kind of like that. But again, really the question becomes, what does it mean to give all? right? It could mean different things. It could mean at the heart level, making this the biggest priority for you. Maybe not even making awakening as an event the biggest priority, but making orientation to the Dharma, orientation to truth, making that the biggest priority in your life at the heart level. That's a huge commitment. It's very important. Saying that kind of silent prayer, all I want is truth, whatever that costs me. I'm willing to go through it. It's a powerful prayer, right? So there's that. That's a way of giving all. Giving all in a moment can mean giving all of your attention to consciousness, to thought and consciousness as they form and disform and morph into one another, and the sense of I, the conscious one, that morphs and disforms and reforms into consciousness and thought, all being one experience. I can give my attention fully to that. So there's giving all. I think the one way it probably gets misinterpreted is like this idea that 24/7 all day long, staying focused on presence, like without a break or something, continuous practice. Like what that does is sets you up to judge yourself because you're not gonna be able to do it. No one can, really. The human body's not a machine. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. It's a good question. I haven't heard that question before or any form of it really. Marianne, I'm so glad I was able to listen this morning as we're driving through the Navajo Nation. Beautiful. Cool. Monument Valley coming up. Peter, there's nothing under live or community tab on your YouTube homepage on my laptop. I wonder if you have more than one login to YouTube or you're not logged in, because the fact that you're actually watching this live means that you are a sustaining member. You're a sustaining member on however you're logged in. So if you're opening it in a different way and you're not logged in as yourself, maybe, or you're someone else's login, or can you watch YouTube without logging in? I don't even know. That's the only thing I can think of why there would be nothing under the community tab or but you should be able to message YouTube and ask them, because I don't know what else to say about that. Ashley is asking you the same question, yeah. It's definitely working, James. Yeah. James, we need to have a conversation on YouTube sometime. He's one of the people I want to interview. This is Aaron. I went to a retreat earlier this year in New Jersey, and there was awakened people there, and a lot of people looked strangely familiar, even though I never met these people before. It was very comforting. That's cool. The feeling of Sangha. This is Michael. My fear of quiet mind retreat space may basically be fear of depression. Could be. Coffee and making up an identity, even though, oops, I lost you. This scrolling thing is goofy. Okay. Coffee and making up an identity, even though I see through it, seems to be necessary to be something other than dark nothing. Yeah, I've released a couple videos in the last couple of days that do address this a little bit. People can get to this, I don't know where it is with you, but people can get to a sort of deep space of realization. And there's a fear, like there's this belief in like somehow just entering the void, like you're just going to disappear into the void or something. But that's the mind's version. That's the thought's version of realization. The thoughts don't know what realization is. They don't see it because they're a reflection of it. In one sense, that's the only illusion there is, right? But when we're identified with thoughts, then the illusion can be extremely complex and nuanced. But the fundamental illusion is just that thoughts can somehow know what realization is. Thoughts can know the unconditioned, that the conditioned mind can know the unconditioned. That's impossible. Yeah. Sarah. Someone asked me to be her teacher. What the F? I like the throw up face. It's funny. Yeah, it's tricky business when you talk about being a teacher or facilitator of awakening. I've recently said in one of my videos, like, if I have advice, it's this, like, if you really want to do it, it may not be there's probably something to look at. You probably not completely aware of your motivations. If you're sort of begrudgingly pushed into it, that's more likely. And or if a teacher you really trust, who is deeply realized themselves, asks you to do it, those are the reasons to do it, I think, generally. Now, again, I'm not talking about teaching yoga, teaching meditation, teaching mindfulness. There's all these different things, right? Teaching all kinds of modalities. I'm talking about like full on realization awakening, because it is full on. That's the whole thing. It's full on, and it will illuminate any fixations you have in your own identity. And if you can't see through those fixations, they're going to become prominent in your interactions with people when you're talking about this. So that's where people get stuck. This is John from Kingston. You're so welcome. Erman, after hearing you say, do something different, go on a retreat, etc., I went to Lisa's retreat. It was beautiful. I left a belief there. I'm so happy. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, good. Ashley, the meditation is super helpful for that energy that accumulates in the head. Thank you again for that pointer. You're welcome. Big Tuna Kahuna, when I'm observing thought, I notice that each thought seems to have a knowing about itself. That's right. It's not a separate person who knows the thought. Can you speak to this, please? There's nothing for me to say other than what you realized. That's where you stop. You literally meditate with that. So I'll say, I guess I can say something, but consciousness, we could say, is it's like light. And light can be directed like a flashlight, and it can just illuminate in like a more open aperture. But unlike a light that we traditionally think of as a light bulb, consciousness is self-illuminating. And you know that now. So you rest in the self-illumination. And the part of what's important here is to recognize thoughts as they're moving and arising, such that you're not avoiding thoughts. So you realize in real time, any thought arising is already that luminous nature of knowing. That's it. Sit with that. See if any other thoughts are catching you, because if there may be one or two little thoughts that are catching your attention that you're identifying with, notice those as thoughts. Those thoughts will also be the illuminating nature of the conscious space. That's the practice. It's very powerful. Nice. Carrie, did you find the relative and absolute kind of merge? Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's no relative apart from an absolute experientially for me. But strangely, I can talk about the relative as the relative, and I can talk about the absolute as the absolute, but I usually don't talk about the absolute as the absolute because there's nothing to say about it. I point to it all the time. But I can also talk about the relative as if it is apart from the absolute. That's the funny magic thing about realization, is it kind of allows anything. Cool. Bob. Thank you, Angelo, and all the questioners from Rochelle and Bob in northern Alberta. Cool. Getting chilly up there by now, I'm sure. This is from Gareth. The spring retreat I was referring to was the one you were thinking of repeating. No, yeah, not going to happen on that. Yeah. So this coming spring, there probably won't be there won't be a repeat of an international retreat. Thanks for clarifying. Big Tuna Kahuna. For instance, I find myself not knowing the words I speak before I speak them, and an understanding that occurs at the same time the thought occurs, not before. Exactly. That's right. I love your comment, Autumn. That's funny. I know what you mean. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to look through real quick and see if there's anyone I didn't talk to. G says, does muscle tension get resolved at some point during this, or is it irrelevant to all this? The muscle tension associated with straining and pushing during practice will definitely resolve over time. Then the underlying sort of accumulated tension that is part of the process of mind identification and repression of emotion and so forth, that takes longer to work out, but it tends to very much work itself out over time. Now, somatic work can be helpful with this for sure. So things like TRE, Qigong, yoga, those kinds of processes as well. Certain types of maybe Rolfing or something, if that works for you. Yeah. Tamiko, hi. Tyson. How do you tell the difference from intuition or thoughts in the present? One simple litmus test. Well, for me, it's easy now, but I want to give you an answer. A litmus test is, as I said in my book, a thought is something you can write down in words. Can you actually write it down? Or can you describe it? Can you describe it in words, like space or something? Intuition will take you beyond all of that. But your mind will drive itself crazy trying to define intuition. So it's not a mental definition that's going to be helpful. Great question. Okay, I got to the end. Awesome. How has it been over 2 hours already? I don't know. It's been a long. I started 15 minutes early, so it's been like 2.5 almost. Thank you, everyone, for your support. I really appreciate your support for the channel support. The money goes to the company Simply Always Awake. It allows us to put on retreats. It allows us to do all kinds of things. Pay people to help me do this stuff, to edit, to a virtual assistant. Yeah, there's a lot to all this now. So I do appreciate it. And also, if anyone's watching still doesn't know how to do the lives or get access to the lives, you get one live per month and one double barrel non-duality per month if you are at sustaining member level or above. But anyone that donates anything to this channel, I appreciate it. And just know it doesn't go, at this point in my life, it does not go to me. I don't take money from this company at all. It just goes to getting this message out in various ways for people. So appreciate y'all. Thank you. See you later. Badillion. See ya.